These are a few of the fastest ways to make $1,000 even if you have no experience, no degree, or no money to get started. Let's get into it. So in this list, we're going to focus on 3 different things. The investment to get started is the first one, pay is number 2, and how fast you can start making money. All right, so first up on the list, food delivery. And this is a really, really popular side hustle. Obviously, it started during the pandemic. Everybody was delivering DoorDash and Uber Eats and getting fast food to their door and dinner and all of that stuff. And surprisingly, it has continued even past the pandemic. I personally thought that when the pandemic was over, that these food delivery services would kind of like decline in terms of demand and how many opportunities there were to actually drive for these companies. But all they keep doing is growing. And I don't understand it, but it's what keeps happening. People keep buying food. They keep ordering on all of the delivery apps. And I really like this for beginners or people that are looking for a side hustle that they don't have to invest a lot of money in to get started. You don't need a coaching program. You don't need some kind of course. You don't need to make an upfront investment. You do need money for gas and you need a car. Or if you're in a city, you can deliver with a bike. But the reality is like, you don't need to do a lot to actually get started with the side hustle, which is why I think it's been such a good opportunity for people that need to make some extra money. And it's also been a good way for people that are not very familiar with side hustles and have never done it before. So some of the big options out there obviously are DoorDash and Uber Eats. There's Instacart if you want to do delivery for groceries. There's Grubhub. Now there used to be more of these companies, but the bigger companies are buying up the smaller companies. So there's less options out there, but the ones that are there are still really solid opportunities. So generally speaking, you can make about $15 to $25 an hour. You're not going to get rich doing this by any stretch, but it's a good way to make just some extra money on the side. And like I said, there's no investment up front with this. You are going to have to pass a background check, and it is going to take a little bit of time, like 2 weeks to get started with this once you apply to become a driver. But this is a pretty low barrier to entry side hustle. So some of the pros, you can choose your own schedule and when you want to work. Depending on the company that you drive for, you can get paid instantly or weekly. The registration process typically for these companies takes about 7 to 10 days, and it does involve a background check. And the good thing is that the vehicle requirements are lower than Uber. Uber has some pretty high standards for what kind of vehicle you use because people are going to get in the car. This one, they're not getting in your car, right? You're driving to a restaurant, you're getting out of the car, you're getting the food, and then you're dropping it off usually at their door. Sometimes you don't even have to say hi to the people, especially if they just want you to drop it on their porch. A lot of these companies are very big on making sure that the drivers get tips and that the consumers actually do a good tip. We've all seen those videos where people are upset that they didn't get a tip, and those companies are really trying to combat that and get consumers to actually start tipping better. Now, the con, obviously, if you live in a place that's not like a big city where you can deliver on a bike, you're gonna need a car, right? And you're gonna need a car that works. Don't know if I should have said the car works. Like, that's pretty self-explanatory. You're going to have car insurance on your car as well. And there is wear and tear, right? So if you're doing this with a brand new vehicle that's going to depreciate a ton because you're driving it a lot, it's something to think about. I think that this is really good for you if you have an older vehicle that's already been depreciated quite a bit. If you're not going to do this a ton, you're not going to drive miles and miles and miles and miles, you're not going to actually put that much wear and tear, but it is something to think about when you're trying to figure out the true amount of money that you make after all of those kind of like hidden expenses. All right, so second up on the list, driving for Uber. So driving for Uber has been a side hustle for a very long time. It was obviously one of the first, or if not the first, driving side hustle out there, and they're still going strong today. There is really a shortage of drivers right now. We've had Uber reach out to us many times and ask us to send them more drivers. So we know that it's in demand right now, and we know that there's a lot of opportunity for driving with Uber. And this is a really great way to make that $1,000 pretty quickly because Uber typically pays more than the food delivery services. You can also get bonuses if you complete a certain number of drives depending on the promotion that Uber's running at the time. And I actually think that this pairs really well with food delivery. If you're somebody that wants to kind of do both of them at the same time and have a broader option for making money, you can drive people around sometimes. And if you don't feel like having people in your car, you can switch over and do food delivery instead. All right, so pros for Uber, you get to control your schedule. It does pay more than delivering food. It's less work than delivering food too, right? You're just sitting in your car, you're driving up to people's house, or you're driving up to a building and letting them in your car. You're not having to get out and go talk. You're not having to get out and go into a restaurant, get food, get back in the car. So if you want something that's like a little bit lazier, Uber is going to be the better way to go. And you can get tips. Very similar to the food delivery services, people are going to leave you tips after their drive. For the cons, you have to have a good vehicle, right? Like Uber has higher requirements as far as what type of vehicle and the condition that it's in that you're going to be driving people in. You are going to have to deal with people more often as an Uber driver than you would as a food delivery driver. But I wouldn't say that you have to be extroverted to be an Uber driver. I've been in plenty of Ubers where they didn't say a word to me, but I've been in plenty of Ubers where the driver really wants to talk and they're like really outgoing. So it just kind of depends on your personality, but you don't have to be outgoing. And similar to food delivery, there's going to be wear and tear on your vehicle. You're going to have to take that into account when you figure out how much money you're actually making over time, especially if you drive a lot. All right, so next way to make $1,000 in the list, freelancing. Freelancing is a great way to make money on the side, and really that's how I got started in the online space. I was doing digital marketing freelancing on the side while I grew the Millennial Money Man website. It's a really consistent way to make money if you have a specific skill set. So freelancing covers a pretty broad range. Like I said, digital marketing or bookkeeping or proofreading or being a transcriptionist. You're basically going and you're doing contract jobs. You're working as a contractor for companies and you're charging either by project or you're charging by hour, but it can be a really consistent way to make money. And usually you can scale your freelancing agency depending on the discipline that you decide to go into. And I think one of the great things about online freelancing specifically is that if you're like a young person, you might already be really good at social media. And there are plenty of business owners out there that are older that have no idea how to do social media. And we just see that pretty often. Like even I wouldn't say that I'm old, but I'm 35. So I'm not like, I don't really know where I'm going with that. Basically me just trying to grapple with the fact that I'm in my mid 30s. But it doesn't just have to be about age either. I've got a lot of freelancers that work in my business. I've got video editors, I've got writers, I've got web developers. There are a lot of different ways to make money as a freelancer, and business owners all have different needs. And it doesn't just have to be online businesses like mine. There are plenty of local brick and mortar companies that need to hire freelancers as well. Your plumber down the street might need a bookkeeper. Your jeweler down the street might need a web developer. Just a lot of different ways to go with freelancing. And the great thing about freelancing, depending on the discipline you're in, you can make great money per hour, or you can do really great retainers. You can charge, like for a blog post, for example, $100 to $500 per blog post. I've even seen more than that over my career. If you're a web developer, you can charge great money per hour. If you're a bookkeeper, you can charge thousands of dollars per month. There's just a lot of different ways to charge, but typically if you're really skilled and you do a good job, these business owners are going to pay you good money to do the work for them. The other great thing about freelancing is that you have a lot of flexibility. You can kind of build your schedule the way that you want to. You can build your business the way you want to. You can have a bunch of employees down the road if you wanted, or you can just be a solopreneur and work from your laptop in coffee shops every day. And you can even do things that are creative like photography, like maternity pictures or family pictures, things like that, where you're just charging a client to come in and take pictures, or you're going to the client. There's just so many different ways that you can do freelancing, and it can be creative or it can be more numbers based. It's really up to your personality. You can really increase your skill set and you can increase your income as you do that. You can even parlay those freelancing skills into a full-time job. That's something that's happened at my company several times now, where we've had somebody that worked for me freelance and then we eventually hired them full-time or part-time. And the reality is, if you already have one of these skills, you already edit your own videos and you're good at video editing, or you already write blog posts for yourself and you're good at writing, you could go hustle right now and get a client this week and invoice them right away. So one of the cons, especially if you want to make money this week, is that you already have to have a skill or some experience to actually start freelancing. But there are plenty of courses out there. There's plenty of ways to get an education online or for free, where you can learn something relatively quickly and actually get started within a month. Now, another con is that you do have to sell your services. You've got to get out there and you have to acquire clients. And one of the cons, depending on which discipline you choose for freelancing, is that the jobs are one-off or they might be hourly. But I will say that there are plenty that operate on a retainer, especially digital marketing and bookkeeping and even web development. There's a lot of different ways that you can charge, but some of them just kind of lend themselves to higher price points and retainers, and some, like maybe virtual assistants, are kind of lower price points and more hourly. And you are going to have some equipment if you're going to do an online freelancing side hustle. So a laptop, an internet connection, probably some headphones and a microphone, things like that. But you're going to need to be able to communicate with business owners online and have reliable equipment. All right, so next one up on the list, renting out your unused space. So this is pretty commonly overlooked, but we've seen this one really grow in popularity a lot over the years. A lot of people have like a garage in their backyard, or they've got some extra space and they want to rent that out to someone that doesn't want to pay exorbitant fees for a storage facility. What's cool about this one is that it's recurring income, right? So you charge people basically every single month that they're using your storage space, which is great if you want consistent, steady money to come in. It's also pretty non-labor intensive, right? You're just giving people the space. They're going to move their stuff in and out. You're not going to have to go and work and do a lot of labor for this money. And it doesn't just have to be limited to storage. You can rent out spare bedrooms. You can rent out spare floors if you live in a duplex and you live on the bottom floor. So it's really house hacking, but you can do it with either storage or with somebody living in your space. So the pros of renting out your space is that you're not going to have to do a lot of physical labor or trade your time for money. You might already have an unused space in your house or outside of your house, and might be ready to go with this and start making money very quickly. It can be a great way to have recurring passive income, and it can help mitigate mitigate your living expenses. If you want to cut down on your living costs, this is a great way to do it. So the cons, you've got to have the space, right? If you don't have the space, you can't do this one. Now, you are going to have to go out and find renters. So there's some marketing involved with this. And you're going to be managing people as essentially a landlord, which is definitely not the sexiest way to make money. It's definitely not completely passive. A lot of people don't like being landlords, but if that's something that is appealing to you, then this is a good option. And you are going to have to sacrifice some privacy. Some people don't care about that, but some people don't want other people coming into their house or coming onto their property. Number 5 on the list, renting out your car. So pretty similar to the last one where you're renting out space, this one you'd be renting out your personal vehicle. This really came about from the rise of popular apps like Turo, where you have a platform to be able to rent your car out to people that don't want to use a normal rental agency like Budget or Avis. One of the cool things you can do is market research. You can find out if there's a more popular type of vehicle in your area, and if you have that vehicle, you can start renting it out. So if you live in like a mountainous area, Jeeps are really popular. If you live in a place that's really good climate, maybe a convertible is the way to go. So this is another really good one where you're not doing labor, you're not trading time for money, you're renting out one of your assets to someone else. And you can outsource the marketing by just getting on an app like Turo. So the pros here, you don't have to do any labor to get paid. If you have a car payment, this could help you pay down that car note faster. It can help you offset your monthly expenses. You can make money with your car while you're not using it. And some people build this out into a full-blown hustle. They have multiple cars that they're renting out, and insurance is going to protect your car in the case that it gets wrecked. Now, one of the cons, obviously, you have to have a car that you can rent out, and you might have to deal with damage to your car. Insurance might cover it, but it's still going to be a pain. And cars do wear and tear. It's very similar to food delivery and driving for Uber. There is going to be that depreciation and maintenance costs that occur with your vehicle. And you might just not live in a place where you can actually do this. If you live in the middle of nowhere where there's no demand for cars, you're not going to make much money doing this. All right, last on the list, sell your stuff. So I think this is one of the fastest ways to make money pretty much instantly. If you really need to make money right now to pay rent or to pay a car note or get some extra money in savings, look around your house. You probably have some stuff that you can sell right now. And I'd be willing to bet that you have more than $1,000 worth of belongings that you probably don't even use anymore. Or if you do use it, it's very, very rarely and you can live without it. So the great thing about this one is that you can list things on Facebook Marketplace, on Craigslist, and on eBay. And you can even make money the old fashioned way. Go to garage sales, find stuff for cheap, and then flip it on eBay, which is kind of the Gary V method. And if you want to go pretty hardcore, you can rent a booth at a swap meet, which can be relatively cheap. And then you can have a place to sell your stuff. So the pros for this one are pretty simple. You can get money for items that you don't use or rarely use. I'd say it's one of the fastest, if not the fastest way to make money this week. And there's a lot of different options as far as places to sell your stuff. So the cons for this one, if you don't have anything valuable in your house to sell right now, you're going to have to go out and find it. And if you kind of take this to the next level and you start really moving inventory, you're going to have to find a place to store all of that. Sometimes you do have to be physically present to sell the items if you're not doing something like eBay, and it might take longer than you think to sell an item. It's not going to just fly off the shelf sometimes. Now, honestly, there's a lot of people talking online about how to make $1,000 instantly and how you can do it with no work or no investment or no anything. That's not usually the case. Usually there's some upfront work or there's a little bit of an investment. So that's why we want to talk about realistic, attainable, non-scammy ways to actually make money. And some of them you legitimately can make money your first week. So these were 6 ways to make $1,000 quickly. Some of them you can even do this week if you start hustling right now. This is Bobby Hoyt from MillennialMoneyman.com. See you in the next video.